Welcome, everyone. Today I'm here with a couple of guys, Lava and Sniper, from the Contingency team, and today we're going to talk about their really cool project that I covered on the channel last week. So I'll kind of kick it over to them to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Arrrash Sniper. I'm the lead technical animator on Project Contingency.
I'm Lavadito. I am one of the UI artists for Project Contingency.
Cool. So we'll start off with just a really basic question, kind of, get us progressing. So just tell me, how did you guys get into Halo?
Well, I had a friend that actually asked me basically in the modding community if I wanted to work on a project, and I was a little hesitant at first to kind of bite that bullet, just because the fact that I was already working on a project at the time, which was SBV3. But I decided, why not? It was something different. It wasn't necessarily modding Halo. It was actually working on something new. So, yeah.
I was more or less in a similar position. I got invited by somebody who was already in the team, and being an animator, we being as rare as we are, it was kind of something the team had desperately needed. It was funny for me because eventually the person who invited me to the project ended up joining 343 themselves.
Well, there you go. That's kind of cool. Well, cool. I guess that kind of covers how you guys got into the project. So kind of tell me a little bit about. So just give me kind of the background on Contingency. I know it's been kicking around for a while. I've seen bits and pieces here and there throughout the years, but I think myself and a lot of people kind of don't really know the full backstory behind it.
Do I do this live or should I?
You go ahead. You start first.
All right, so let's begin at the actual 100% beginning. So, back in 2008, there was a bunch of people who made a group called Bayview Games, and they started work on a fan project named Galaxy of Combat. It was set to release in around 2012, but they ended up failing to meet that market, and they ended up rebranding to Project Contingency around late that year. And Lavi here is actually the one who came up with that name in the first place, hilariously enough.
Yeah, I was basically, so me and Sniper knew each other actually before this, but during that time, I joined him about a month before that, right?
Yeah, you were there for a while.
Yeah, so I joined up about a month before, and during that time, it was a different name called Galaxy of Combat, like Sniper said, and basically that kind of we needed a different name at the time, and I essentially coined Contingency because we didn't really know at that time exactly how far we wanted to go with lore and stuff, and it was just something simple to go with.
And then after that, in around 2015, we ended up switching from CryEngine to Unreal, and at that point, Contingency ended up becoming its own game and was no longer Galaxy of Combat. And at that point is when you could really consider Galaxy of Combat just straight up dead. That project just no longer exists after that point.
Yeah, Galaxy of Combat is basically no longer of that at all. So people say, "Oh, is this Galaxy of Combat?" It's like, no, not at all.
Okay, I'll be honest. I had never even heard of Galaxy of Combat, so this is my first time learning about that. So that's really cool.
That's kind of how I was when I was first asked to join. I was just like, and we're not gonna lie, the very early renditions were very rough from what we saw.
So was Galaxy of Combat also a Halo based game, or was this just its own thing?
It was its own Halo game,
Okay.
but it was a Halo game with an incredibly massive scope that no indie team could actually accomplish, especially not a fan team.
Very ambitious.
Basically, if in a nutshell, what Galaxy of Combat was supposed to be was if you took ideas from PlanetSide and put into the concept of a Halo game. So you would have these massive battles happening on multiple servers all at the same time and be huge persistent battles and all that, where you can do stuff like, hey, you're on the ground on this level, but your guys in the sky need some help. So grab a Pelican, go into space, dock onto a frigate, and start shooting ships in space. It's crazy ideas, and it's amazing. There's no way anyone's getting that done without being paid.
Not in a short amount of time, as a lot of, especially a lot of the original team members had anticipated. I mean, heck, there was actual dates we wanted to release and stuff, and we were not anywhere near at that time to do it. like very, very early on. And it's just like, especially like the whole space battles and stuff like that. Like, it was such a massive scale. We even had an idea where essentially you were going to have it where one match was tied into another match, because basically based on that point value from one that match would affect the overall side, because the whole idea was like it's still going to be Covenant versus UNSC, that kind of deal, and essentially whoever had that amount of points, I think it was like we said something like in a month that team would win and they get rewards or something like that. Yeah, it was very ambitious, but not easily executable because just very small team, you know.
For sure. No, that sounds super sweet, but it also sounds like the type of
very
project,
complicated
that even a big team that was getting paid, that's the kind of stuff that just it never makes its way through.
Like, because so much server stuff, so much server side stuff.
Hilariously, I still have all the supporting documentation for all of that.
Well, that's crazy. So kind of tell me a little bit, like, what are your guys' goals with Contingency today? Obviously, it seems like the scale has been drawn back in a bit at least, but kind of what are your hopes in the near future and going further into the future once you guys are kind of out of alpha and everything?
So the way we've always seen it is that Contingency is more or less just what we as a team believe to be the best Halo experience we can provide. Something that, because they're focusing on a PC experience, shows like has all the bells and whistles that a PC experience would give you. So basically, try to take this franchise that we all love, take what we think are the best elements, put our own spin on it, and just make it feel cohesive in that realm, or at least what we believe to be cohesive.
Basically taking the best parts we believe as a team and putting it together and making it work well. Not just so much, oh, we like that, we're just going to add to that. And
yeah, there's actual like a strict amount of thought that's put into how we do things. And
very much
originally, when we had started working on Contingency, MCC PC was not a thing. Mm-hmm. So for us, it was like we're aiming to deliver the PC Halo experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, that still hasn't changed. MCC is still its own thing compared to what we are. We're not an MCC. We're not a copy of like Halo 3, Halo Reach, Halo 2, whatever. We're making our own niche with what we want with Halo, and that's what it is. So we can coexist side by side, and there's still no problem.
Yeah, just because the fact that MCC is, and similar why we started the project in the whole beginning was because we love Halo, and as much as everyone likes Halo, everyone has a different view on each Halo, and they rather play that one. So comparing us to MCC is kind of like comparing any other Halo to any other Halo, realistically speaking.
For sure, that makes sense. So that actually kind of brings up a couple questions I'd kind of like to ask you about. So I know a lot of people, at least in feedback that I've seen on like different comment sections and whatnot, a lot of people have kind of I don't know the exact verbiage, but a lot of people have been saying that Contingency kind of is like a modern classic Halo. Is this something that you guys are aiming for, or is it just kind of ended up that way?
That was always something we kind of aimed for, I would say. At least once we started in Unreal. Maybe not in like CryEngine days, but
yeah, our goals have basically stayed the same all the way through since the very beginning. But for us, I guess that would probably be a good approximation, just modernizing classic Halo gameplay, because that's what we've all kind of grown up on, and we just wanted to kind of expand that and make it, better, or if not better, at least more of what we can add to it that would make it better.
At the risk of sounding like a PR guy with this, it is we're making a modern version of the experience Halo is known for.
You have a PR guy?
No, I think that's a good way to put it. And there's probably a ton more development to come on the game, but I'm sure you guys will do a good job kind of fulfilling that goal there. So you talked a little bit about how when you guys started, MCC PC wasn't a thing. When that got announced and released, is that a bummer to you guys, or is it kind of, you kind of mentioned you're kind of just doing your own thing, so is it kind of just MCC is its own thing and you guys are doing your thing, so it's just different experiences for different people?
So there's a funny thing about that. About 6 months before MCC PC was announced, I was one of the few people who was invited to 343 and told about it at that time, along with a bunch of other I say small, a bunch of other people. We knew ahead of time it was going to be a thing. We always expected it to be a thing, and we've always wanted it to be a thing. Even if MCC PC had dropped a year after we joined the team, we probably still would have worked on this game, honestly.
Yeah, no, so that's the biggest thing about like kind of going back to an earlier discussion we had about like comparing Halo to Halo and us to MCC. As much, I mean, we're all big fans of Halo, and where I would say personally, and a lot of people are really glad MCC got into PC because there was no real PC Halo. I mean, you had Halo 2 and Halo 1, but even then that was still relatively limited and not everyone was wanting to play that. But now that we actually have Halo on PC, it's great. And because of that, it helps us kind of learn more from it as well in the PC environment. But
it helps our development a little bit too, because I can be like, hey, is this how this was done in this game? Let me just load up MCC and find out.
Yeah, no, that's actually the funny thing, yeah. It does help a little bit, just kind of understanding how things were back in the day too, when Halo was first developed. Going back to that, basically, it's just for us when it comes to a lot of, I want to say, comparing us to MCC as well. Again, similar deal. It's just comparing Halo to Halo at that point.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So, kind of obviously, your guys' Contingency is in Unreal Engine 4, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of tell me a little bit, keep it basic, because I don't think most of the people that watch my channel are developers or super heavy into modding, but kind of give me a basic rundown of kind of some of the benefits that making a Halo game in Unreal has, maybe over the traditional Halo engines, or modding something like Custom Edition or Halo 2 Vista or whatever you would do.
I'm going to let Sniper talk because that's a lot more technical.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So for reference, by the way, both me and Lavi modded CE for a number of years. So we actually know what that's like. Me personally, I've actually
especially Halo 1 engine.
The Blam engine. Let's go! We've done our fair share of modding, and I've also gone in my stints of modding different things. For instance, I did modding back in like Source Engine, which is what Half-Life and Gary's mod are made in. I've done modding for UDK because of Killing Floor, and then CryEngine, which is when we started off. I did mods for the original Crysis, and obviously when I started doing Contingency stuff, that helped as well. The biggest benefit is that Unreal is one of those engines where you have the flexibility to do pretty much whatever you want, and the only real limitations are hardware-based and not software. In Blam, for instance, you can't have synchronizing AI easily.
Especially across the server. That's
specifically with Source, for instance, you can do a lot of different things, but the way that Source is, its level editor and how everything is built is archaic, to say the least. And anyone who ever used Hammer will agree with me there. With Unreal's level editor is probably the best thing I've ever had the luxury of using, quite frankly. It's robust, it's intuitive, and you can change it to be literally whatever you want, to the point that one of our devs, as a joke, changed his entire editor to have a dancing dinosaur as the UI. And that is an actual thing you can just do. Everything's well documented, which was a serious problem we had in CryEngine. None of the documentation.
I was actually going to mention about that. Documentation was a really big thing too about us choosing it, because going back to Galaxy Combat days at that time in CryEngine, CryEngine is well known to not have really good documentation.
Allow me to put it like this. There was a specific instance where we were trying to figure out how something needed to go and like why something wouldn't work. Our team lead, Kabi, literally messaged CryAtom on the forum saying, hey, we have no idea how this works. Can you help us? And he just responded, oh yeah, we had this documentation written down in full like 3 months ago, but never made it public.
Oh.
Yeah, so a feature that you need isn't in documentation. It's going to definitely harp in a lot of like getting anywhere in terms of just getting stuff done. If anything else, if you can't work on it, what's the point, Yeah,
with Unreal, you can literally be like, UE4, how to do this. And their first option will usually give you exactly what you need.
And community also helps with that too, because UE4 has a huge, and I mean really, really huge marketplace and community of people who have created their own content that are willing to share. Along with that, and that's kind of the biggest thing too, it's very user friendly. I mean, most of our team don't know anything about coding. Like, especially me, I have zilch nothing about coding. And the fact that I can actually go into UE4 and just look through some of it, I'm able to understand what's going on and help adapt to it, it actually is very, very nice for a non-programmer.
That's actually that's kind of the biggest thing, because in CryEngine, we had 2 programmers. One of them knew what he was doing. The other, not so much. And really, the way it ended up working was we would make all this cool stuff, and our programmers would try to implement it, and then half the time the game would break. We didn't really ever have a stable build of that game. I'll say that. Meanwhile, with Unreal...
It looks stable.
That's because we didn't. Within 6 months of us switching from CryEngine to Unreal, we had all of our progress and then some. I think we actually did the math at one point, so it was like 12 times the progress we got within 6 months than the entire time we were in CryEngine.
Jeez.
Basically, we could actually play our game without having to worry about super.
You got real emotional about it too. I remember that the first
I was like,
test, you were about to cry because you're like,
well,
this is our game, dude.
It was also just like the fact. Okay, so the biggest part also like going from CryEngine to UE4. So we had This is also kind of going back into the whole like where it's more user friendly versus something you have to have coding base. So the thing about UI design is you have usually 2 people. You have the UI artist and you have a UI designer, or even just UI coder is another way to put it. Basically, they do the back end stuff. They make sure that your UI actually functions. You know, if you want your bullets to actually display how much to count, that's where they usually go. And then the artist makes it look pretty. For me as a UI artist, I've been working at the time for the UI designer. He was able to get one of my concepts into CryEngine, but even then it wasn't able to fully realize what I wanted to do with it because, again, CryEngine limited, documentation, and then like even with materials. Oh my God, materials! Sniper can definitely tell you about that. It was just like, cool, I've got my UI in there, but it looks like crap because it's not the way I want it to do. And then you go into Unreal, and after that 6-month period, and it just right down to what I wanted, and it's just it was emotional.
Yeah, it certainly was.
It's basically like when you bake a cake and you finally get the icing on it, and it just looks perfect, and you're just so happy about it.
Yeah.
Hey, if you ever baked a cake, especially if you're trying to decorate it, you know what I mean.
I can't say I do a whole ton of cake baking, but I'll take your word for it. So, obviously, anyone that's kind of followed any type of fan project, it kind of seems like a lot of them either kind of get stuck in development or, they kind of fall by the wayside or they come out. You guys kind of mentioned like missing release dates that you guys had set for yourself and whatnot. So kind of just explain what are some of the biggest hurdles of developing a fan-made game?
I mean, there's quite a few, to be straight honest. Like, especially if you're someone that has never developed a game before and you're trying to get started and stuff, you have all these aspirations, but you're kind of going in naive, to be straight honest. I mean, one of the biggest things I would say probably is time more than anything else, taking time out of your day to just focus on the project. And then I guess going along with that as well as just burnout, because especially if it's a passion project like this, you really want to focus on it. But then when you just put so much effort and you don't feel like you're getting enough back, you feel like it's not worth it.
Another one certainly is if you're working on a fan project specifically. I know a lot of people also complain about like how legal is a project that's a fan project, and honestly that depends really on a lot of different things. But in our case specifically, we're lucky enough to be working under a Microsoft property, which everything under the Microsoft property is governed by what's called the game content usage rules. And basically it's a set of rules Microsoft has set out where this is things you can do, this is things you can't do, and follow these and you're fine. And that's one of the things that we've
been following wholeheartedly. Like we don't want to step on anyone's toes, especially.
Yeah. If we're being lucky enough to be allowed to do something and not get shut down or have to deal with legal nonsense, we're going to follow those rules.
And I've seen the comments.
Yeah.
About that. Like if anything else, I would say both, well, not just me and Sniper, but the team as well, we're very, very grateful for, Microsoft allowing stuff like this for us to do.
Funny because 343 is very fully aware that we exist. I've talked to them. I've been invited to their studio multiple times for because of it, and it's one of those really cool things, honestly, to be able to be like, so I've been working on a project for X amount of years. Suddenly, the people making the official title, like, hey, you want to come to our studio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine that'd be pretty sweet.
That-
I've never been up there. I'm sure it's a cool experience.
Hey, man, you just gotta show up, meet people, take names. I'm not even
Actually, to kind of go along with that in terms of just going with hurdles and stuff, knowing people is actually another big thing too.
God. Yeah.
Just knowing people.
On that note, I don't know how happy or not you would be about this, but I'm gonna give a massive shout out to Green Skull, because Green Skull was the one who really put us on 343's radar and helped us talk to some of the people at Microsoft in relation to us. That was a big help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I would actually, in the case of this too, also thanks to you, Arrrash, for actually willing to interview us.
Oh yeah, no problem, man.
Not putting as a lesser note, but
No,
this
you're
helps.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I thought, especially with something like this, where I think unless people were really searching for the info or kind of really following the project, I think it's been one that's kind of flown under the radar in the Halo scene a little bit to some degree. So I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, over the years it's gone under. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that that's probably another problem with some of the fan base projects is like when they start getting teased or you start getting info, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of hype around them. But then by the time that something playable actually comes out to the public, a lot of that interest and that excitement has kind of fallen by the wayside. A lot of people have just forgotten about it, admittedly. So I think giving you guys the opportunity to, I mean, your game's in alpha now, so it's playable, and you guys can come and talk a little bit about the game. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's speaking of emotional moments, that was definitely a big one up for all of us on the team, I would say, because so let me just kind of I want to say this more than anything else because this does definitely puts in perspective. Me and Sniper and I don't know how many other people on our team have been on this project for about 9 years now. That they're actually still on the team.
You, me, Cobby, Alex, Mike, Fernando, Caton, and Mesh.
Yeah, we're has Mesh been in here?
Mesh joined in with Unreal, so not nearly as far.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, no. I mean, not saying he hasn't been here for a while.
Was part of the Galaxy Combat days too, actually.
Yeah, he was the one. Remember, he introduced me on. Yeah, so he was definitely one of the real OG members. Basically, we've been on this team doing this project, and then in the fact that we switched engines for, oh my god, it's hard to believe 9 years has actually passed more than anything else, but it is emotional to realize we actually have done it.
Yeah.
We're out there.
I don't really think there are any other fan projects, specifically at least in Halo's case, that have actually gotten like a playable release out there.
No, not that I'm aware of that have actually been like a public playable release.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen like builds for different games that have been passed around, but I've never seen one that went into like an actual alpha or anything like that.
Yeah, because I know that we've talked to one of our major things has always been that we want to talk to the other fan game devs, see what they're up to, just have some open lines of conversation. And I mean, if you look at our announcement with our Rocket Launcher, the launcher that we're using to actually have you play Contingency, it's set up so that literally any fan game that wants to release on it can do so.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
that offer has been taken up by a few of them as well.
Yeah, because that's actually the biggest thing more than anything else is as much as we are big Halo fans and we have passion for the project itself, we wouldn't be as far as we would without a community. Straight honest.
Yeah. So it's our way of giving back a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, because we've literally been there. We understand the tropes and kind of just basically all the hurdles you have to get through to really get there.
Anything.
Yeah. And and just all that kind of stuff. And I think more than anybody else can stress this, is burnout is a real thing. So, I guess in the case if anyone's anyone listening to this that thinks they're actually going to be starting up a fan game, I'm not saying don't, but just be realistic in your expectations. Don't do what we started. You would say don't?
I would say don't.
I
Yeah, I would say
mean,
no.
I'm kind of more on like if you're willing to put up with the stress, yeah, go for it. But it's basically like taking a job that you don't get paid for in a lot of ways.
Don't
Yeah.
expect to go into a fan game and have a good time if you don't know what the hell you're doing. That's all I'm going to
Bingo.
say.
That's why it's better to actually get people on your project with you. I
I
mean,
mean, I'd
if
say just join an existing project
or even that, like just
or mod.
get yourself used to the ropes more than anything else.
Yeah, there's plenty of projects out here that kind of cover pretty much everything. Like, you look at the other fan projects, you have, I mean, Installation 01 is doing something very similar to us, but they've also got their own take on how they're working with the game. You go look at, say, Iron Hammer, they're making an entire campaign based on brutes.
Which
And
is
you
really
have-
cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. You look
Yeah.
at Downfall, they're making a full ODST story on some planet. I don't remember what the planet was. It's been a while.
I'm sorry. I just like trying to think of being a little cheeky about it. Just I was just like, no, we're not IO1. Stop asking. I've seen so many comments. It's like, is this IO1?
I have,
You know, and
I
like,
have seen a lot of that, and I think
yeah.
I think the confusion there is like at a base level they look similar-ish because they're just kind of arena-based multiplayer Halo games,
I mean,
but
yeah, but I think each
It's-
game has its own visual distinction. Because I know, for instance, Contingency's aesthetic, especially, is one of those things which is identifiable as being its own thing.
mhm.
Because this is something that we all talk about a little, but I don't think we've actually kind of like publicly stated it. If you're going to end up spending so much time making a fan game, why would you just make a replica of something that already exists?
That
comes
that's
from
a big
gameplay,
thing.
art, audio, all of that. There's no point in just recreating something if you're going to spend that much time. Somebody wants to play a game that already exists, they're going to go play it.
For sure.
And we're not a mod either.
Mod.
Nope.
We are a game that is being made from scratch with no prior like basis.
No, and again, thanking the team for as much as they do for it. Everything's been made from scratch, and nothing in our game is actually from original retail assets or from another source that would be, that essentially.
The
Cool.
only things that we've used are with permission, like Megascan's assets.
Okay, well, cool. Why don't we'll shift gears a little bit and kind of just tell me a little bit what kind of feedback have you guys been hearing since the game has gone into alpha?
When can we play?
That's fair. I've seen that
Where's
one a
the
lot.
code.
Yeah, man. I will say this: it has been a wild experience seeing what people have been saying, because it's been one of those cases where like we're just sitting here talking to people, seeing what their reactions are, and we're just here expecting the worst, about like as if we're about to get shot, and it's like these guys are enjoying our game. What? Is that allowed? Is this something that they can do?
Yeah, no, it's very surprising but very grateful how positive we've been getting, like
Yeah.
in terms of both reviews and just the fact that people seem to be excited to play. I mean, yeah, it makes it worth it.
And it's funny too, because internally we were a goddamn mess at that point. Externally, everything's just like, why is everything working so well? Like, I was running a 105 fever the day of the release, to the point that I
Jeez.
ended up dropping in like 2 hours past the release, just staring at a spreadsheet for the next 3 days.
Yeah, no, yeah, I remember. And then getting the blog post out and all that.
Oh god, yeah, everything sucked.
Basically, it kind of goes in the hand in hand with
Murphy's
creating a
Law.
project. Yeah, what the worst thing that can happen, and will happen. And basically, that was a case of it.
So, for reference, we had planned all of our setup from, like, for this alpha about 3 or 4 months in advance. And literally, the day that things could go wrong, and that we didn't want to go wrong, everything went wrong. But yeah, generally, feedback has been positive. The biggest feedback that we've gotten is, hilariously, there's a lack of feedback. And I think you touched on that on your original video. I know a few people had, but basically there's a lack of visual and audio feedback for...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was kind of also a little lost. Like,
Yeah, I didn't know
I
what you
mean,
meant,
we've been getting feedback, from the community,
yeah,
but
okay. Yeah,
but
like, there's a lack of visual and audio feedback, and it's something that we're addressing. Quality of life and making game feel good is important to us, so right now, like for those of you who haven't been checking out content or knowing that we've been patching the game pretty much daily at this point for updates, we've been pushing a lot for quality of life, making sure that visual feedback, audio feedback, animation, etc., everything just kind of feels right. It's cohesive.
And
it's been improved greatly from the day of release. I'll say that much.
I want to also add on to that. It's like, especially for like both internally and externally, it's been very, very nice to see those patches, because it kind of helps shows that we're actively, trying to fix it. Like, we understand there are problems and we are trying our best to fix it, but that's also kind of goes into the to show that we aren't just like, oh, here we're released, all right, we're done, bye.
Well, cool. I guess really I don't have too much else other than I just kind of, you guys don't have to spoil too much. Obviously, you want to keep some of that to yourself, but just tell me some of the general ideas maybe you have for the future. Like, currently the game in its state is mostly, I would say, just like your standard arena Halo gameplay, but are you looking at adding in vehicles and different game modes? Are there going to be, is when you add in new maps, are you looking at, obviously, and don't murder me because I don't remember the map names, but there's the one map that is kind of a remake of Guardian. Are you looking towards remaking more maps, or are you going to go more of the original map route?
Yeah, you go ahead.
For that last part, it's certainly a mix. Obviously, one of the things that is a personal thing to me is, again, not remaking stuff, because why would you? For me, remakes are just one of those things which really help you understand what your game is like in the context of something else. That's just a personal opinion. But most maps, I think, we only have 2 that are actually remakes, and everything else is custom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
because we're certainly
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we're certainly aiming to define our own niche, define our own style of gameplay, because while something should work within the same sort of realm that something already exists, we don't want. We certainly are going to have different things, which makes it so that our gameplay isn't necessarily the same. And I think you can kind of see that with like how some of our layouts on Cardinal, our Guardian remake, are kind of different. They're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
For better or worse, but there's differences all across the board.
Speed is a big thing too. Like, our gameplay is relatively faster than even, like, in the case, since it's Guardian, Halo 3. We wanted to essentially modernize it because, I mean, if you've played Halo 3, you kind of understand what we're saying on that. It's like, it's fun, but it definitely has its slow paces, and it can make it a little bit awkward to play sometimes because of it. Sure. And so we wanted to kind of, in the sense of what you were saying earlier, modernizing the Halo, classic Halo gameplay. This is an example of it, just, and we have thought of, like, we kind of showed off in the April Fools that one time the advanced movement features that we're not for sure adding in, but we have discussed, like, what we could do that would actually make sense for Halo, not so much because it's a gimmick.
Yeah. I mean, early on, we also, like, back when we started in Unreal, you could probably check this on my channel. I'll probably send you a video or something where we had this build called Prototype. And on that, we tried out a bunch of weird little things. And in those early builds, we had stuff like a variation of clamber, which I know is controversial, but it operated differently than, say, like Halo 5's, or actually even most games, where it wasn't like just a straight climb up thing. It was grab surface, yeet yourself up. So you would still retain your motion and everything.
I would say, like, it. I mean, to go along with that, the closest example that I could think of in terms of a modern game, so people kind of understand the difference between what you would consider like clamber, like in Doom, or in Halo 5, is like Destiny 2, for example, has this sort of feature like that, where if you're high enough, they'll give you that little push to get above.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could think of, like, the best way to explain it.
We've also experimented with, like, different features. For instance, Lavi and I had at one point proposed this to the team. Was a feature we called bounding, which is basically you can one time jump off of a wall to give yourself some extra height. So like, let's say you're running on a flat wall that in front of you, you could jump at the wall and then bounce off of it and go higher.
Okay, gotcha.
Essentially, kind of like a double jump, but you have to use the wall.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And
Could
of course,
be
there's
interesting.
limitations like angles and stuff like that. But it's still something we're kind of wondering if we even want to do yet.
I'd certainly want to try it, but obviously, people are going to be like, well, this is supposed to be a class experience. Why are you doing X, Y, and Z? So we've thought about things that we want to include that we feel is our experience. Whether or not we do something like that is entirely up in the air, but even if we do, we'll probably add a toggle for you to turn it off if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Because that's just kind of obvious for us, honestly. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Maps that are designed with these in mind won't work the same way, but alas. As for other features, we are certainly missing a lot of features in the current alpha. One of the things that we've already talked about this in our initial blog post about it, but vehicles are currently not in the game. That is something we want to do, and in fact, if you look at Jaywalk was actually half designed with vehicles in mind.
Okay.
But you can
That's why it's very spacious.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
We don't have any heavy weapons as of right now, and by heavy weapons I mean stuff like the mounted turret, the plasma cannon,
Yeah.
and all that. And elites are a planned feature. They're not ready. As the guy who's basically kind of in charge of what's going on with elites right now, I can guarantee you they are not ready.
Basically, we don't want to give it, half baked.
Yeah.
Baked, especially because it's like we know there is a big, relatively big amount of people that want elites to play as, and it's like we understand, we know it, and that's why we want to add into it. But we don't want to give you basically a T-posing model just walking around shooting. It's not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It looks cool, but
that sounds pretty sweet to me. That'd give me a good chuckle.
I mean, you want a good chuckle like that right now? Go pick up a flag.
Oh jeez. Hey, I've always wanted to snap my neck. Yeah.
I am putting that back in at some point. I hope.
It's so disorienting. No.
I wanna. But speaking of,
should we explain that? Because probably some people don't know.
I could probably find it if I just look.
Well, I'll if anything else, I'll explain. Basically, right now we're having a bug with both our objective, like held objectives, includes the oddball and the flag, where essentially your view goes 180 when you jump, and basically your controls get inverted. So it's like you can see your own chest just by jumping, and it's very disorienting.
I was talking about the actual neck snapping Spartan GIF animation for suicides.
Oh no, not that. I was talking. You were talking about objectives. I was thinking about like moving around. No, that I still want. Yeah.
Everybody wants that for some stupid reason.
Do you want to explain that, or do you want me to explain that?
I'm gonna look for the actual. I'm gonna just look for the GIF.
While he's doing that, okay. Well, here I'll show you. But other things that we want to also add into here is. Basically, it's it's a when you know how when people quit mid game, right? We wanted to essentially give it a little bit more expression and say, hey, you quit the game, and we thought we could get a good chuckle out of it if you literally snap your own neck. Flick the person off and snap the neck.
There you go.
We currently have a function in the game which is debug, but if you get stuck somewhere, you can press a button and just suicide. This was the animation that was tied to it originally.
Oh, okay.
Just because on our prototype build, I was asked, "Hey, can you do this?" I was like, "I got an idea."
I think it's a great feature still too.
It's one of my favorites still.
But yeah, like similar to that, we do want to add in a lot of like original plans that we had. It's just a matter of just getting stuff up and running first. Basically, you can't sprint till you actually have legs,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Don't trigger people with sprint. What are you doing?
I mean, not now. No. Actually, do you want to talk about that a bit? I know we had the discussion about like custom games and stuff with that.
I don't think that was ever finalized in any capacity.
No, I know, but it was because the people are going to be like, "Are you going to add sprint?" That kind of deal.
As of right now, there are no plans.
Yeah. Okay. That ends that.
Though in terms of big things, one thing we've wanted that is still a holdover from the original Contingency from CryEngine is what we call internally huge team battle, which is basically any combat scenario that involves more than 16 players.
Okay.
The idea is to have support for 64-player matches.
Yep. That's
you can get
in
32 versus 32.
And that did include like new game modes that would go around that as well, not so much just like, super big team Slayer, super big team CTF. I mean, should I say about that one game mode?
We'll hold our cards for now.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I guess also expanded testing, like this closed alpha is not just being limited, Sniper could better explain it than I can about it, but basically this alpha that we have right now that's currently just 100 people is not going to be the concrete limit we're going to have. We're going to expand it over time as well.
Yeah. The idea is that as we get more people, as we get our foundation in a place where we're happy with, we'll slowly start to expand our tester base and expand what kind of content is in the build itself. Because obviously, we only have 3 maps in the build right now, whereas in our developer build, we have like 20.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's maps you guys haven't even seen yet that we're actually excited to show when we can.
Yeah, there's a lot of... It's one of those cases where you're not really going to understand how much we've experimented with the Halo formula until you really see the maps that were built around these experimentations. And you'll eventually get to see these things, but it's a matter of, again, just making it. Getting it to a point where we're happy with being able to show something off.
And that's kind of where we are with this alpha right here. That's the biggest thing I think a lot of people... most have seemed to understand, but a lot of people don't understand as well, is this alpha we have is actually a very, and I mean very small slice of all the content we want to add for the game, even up to release. Just because of the fact that we have stuff we want to show, but it's not good enough for us to show, we personally feel like, or even playable. And because of that, if we actually did all that, it would just be a complete unplayable mess, and no one would like that.
Well, cool. I don't necessarily have any other questions. Do you guys have any other specific topics you want to bring up, or should we kind of wrap it up?
Well, I was gonna ask you. Here, Sniper, if you have something, you can go first. Okay, well, I was gonna say, how about you, Arrrash? How have you been enjoying it? I know I've seen you play it a couple times.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Unfortunately, a couple of times that I've got on, the only servers that I can find are in Australia, which is an experience to say the least. So it muddies my view. But overall, I think it's pretty fun, obviously. And I'm sure you guys are aware the alpha build is pretty alpha. It's a little bit.
Yeah, no, we know.
It's rough around the edges, but I think it has promise. And I think it definitely it is fun now. And I'm sure it'll be much more enjoyable once there's more maps and everything there. And once it's a little bit easier to maybe find matches. So it's not. One of the issues I have right now is like I hop on to try and play, but there's no servers, and then it's like, all right, well, try again later.
Yeah.
So
it is a limited pool. 100 people is not a lot of people,
sure. Yeah.
realistically speaking. But if anything else, it definitely does better stress tests than just our internal testers.
For sure. Yeah. No, I'm excited to get to play it more and get to try it out more, especially as you guys updated and just as more people get added in and everything. So I'm excited to follow the project and kind of see where it goes. With that said, obviously, why don't you guys go ahead and kind of tell people where they can follow the project, where they can, keep up to date on all the updates, where they can apply if they haven't applied to become a tester, and all those goodies. And I'll put all the links in the description for what they're talking about.
PR Sniper, go ahead.
All right. So we have our main website, which is project-contingency.com. Our Twitter handle is @projcontingency. We have a subreddit, a YouTube channel. We have an Instagram and an Indie DP page. Also, one thing I'm going to clarify is a thing that people kind of didn't realize was a thing. The name is no longer Project Contingency. It's just Contingent.
Yep.
Our handles may still say Project, but it's just,
Yeah, we dropped the project because at this point we have basically gone out of the project phase. We're officially known as Contingency. And I do want to apologize to Sniper. I'm sorry I said Project Contingency at first. It's just and I can understand where people are coming from too as well when they accidentally say project, because it's like that's what we were used to be called for so long.
Yeah.
And now we actually have the actual name. It's going to take a little bit to get used to. But either way, we are Contingency. We're very proud of what we do. I guess in my closing thoughts, that if anything else, I'll honestly say thank you to everyone on the team more than anything else. You guys have done a really great job. And I'm very proud for everyone that has been able to do what they can, considering, like I said before, this is a passion project, and taking time out of your day just to help make the game better than anything else is just very, very, very cool. And if anything else, without the Contingency, I would actually honestly not have gotten as far as I have. I mean, I actually work in the game industry now because of it. And
That's awesome.
It's really nice. Yeah, no, it's really, really been its own ride, but it's far better, for better or for worse. I wouldn't change anything really about it. To an extent.
I want to just echo that for a little bit because, and Lavi, you might remember this, but during work on Contingency, there was a time where I got picked up by a small indie dev studio.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm talking like pure startup stuff.
Yep.
It wasn't until I really saw how these guys were working that I really saw how lucky I was to work on Contingency.
We can be dysfunctional sometimes, I mean, as with, to be honest, I think a lot of even professional companies can be that way sometimes, just when so much is going on. But yeah, no, we've had our hit and misses a lot.
Yeah.
Just going through the years. But overall, we've gotten better.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. The team has pushed me specifically a lot to just get better all the time. And I mean, I also have like weird ways of looking at how to do things, but like, yeah, these guys, it is such a pleasure to work with everyone.
That I would say, like, if any, like, although some of these people we've known beforehand, even on the project, and then some of these people we've met through the project, and being together for so long, we've grown our bonds and relationships and such. It's been really nice in terms of that, just people we know. I mean, like I said before, me and Sniper knew each other. Man.
I knew you for...
Yeah, I was gonna say, you want to talk about that?
We've known each other for long enough that I actually went to Lavi's wedding, in person.
Yeah, no, like Sniper has been basically. I've known him for so long that basically he would be one of the few people for sure I would invite to my wedding, and I did, because I was like, I've known him for so long now, and
We've known each other since we were wee little teenagers, and now we're like full-grown adults. Like, what the hell are we doing with our lives?
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think how long that's been. I mean, I'm married, now, and for 3 years, happily married, and I'll say, if anything else, in closing thoughts too, I want to thank my wife more than anything else. She's been very supportive through all this too.
Well,
we're thanking people.
Might as well. We got
major shout out to you, my guy, Arrrash. Interviews are fun, and we appreciate you bringing us on.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was really fun hearing about kind of the backstory and some of the details, because admittedly I didn't really know them, so it's exciting, and I'm sure other people will find this pretty interesting. So I appreciate you guys coming on to talk about it.
Oh yeah, no, we figured now might be the best time, if anything else, and you seemed interested, so I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, with that said, I think we can kind of wrap it up there. I kind of mentioned it a bit ago, but I'll put all the links for all the different places that you can find Contingency in the description, so make sure you follow all the different socials, check out the game, check out the Discord, and eventually, once you can, get in and play it. And with that said, thank you guys for watching.
Also, thanks, Kavi.